Friends, if you're in the mood for a powerful, emotional, and thought-provoking film that will make you reflect on your own life and the world around you, then you absolutely must watch Disconnect 2012. And if you're enjoying content like this or visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel because we bring you detailed reviews, breakdowns, and behind-the-scenes info on some of the most impactful films out there. Today's video is all about Disconnect, a movie that takes a deep, emotional dive into the world of technology, human connection, and the unintended consequences of our digital lives. In this video, we're going to explore Disconnect from every angle. We'll begin by discussing what this film is all about, the central themes, the emotional tone, and the unique narrative style that sets it apart from typical Hollywood dramas. This movie tells multiple interwoven stories about people who are all, in some way, searching for a real connection in an increasingly virtual world. It's a film that shows how technology can be a bridge between people, but also how it can be a wall that isolates them. Whether it's cyberbullying, identity theft, online relationships, or the struggle to be heard in a noisy, digital environment, this film touches on it all with honesty and emotional intensity. And of course, I'll be telling you where you can watch Disconnect. If you're wondering which OTT platform it's available on, or if it's airing on any satellite channels, I've got that covered for you. Whether you prefer streaming it from the comfort of your home or catching it on TV, you'll get all the details right here in this video. So stay tuned till the end to find out exactly how and where you can watch this masterpiece. We'll also take a closer look at the technical aspects of the film, the direction, the cinematography, the editing, the sound design, and the music. Director Henry Alex Rubin brings a grounded, documentary-style feel to the film, which makes it even more real and impactful. The camera work captures the characters' emotions so intimately that you almost feel like you're intruding on their private lives. The music, composed by Max Richter, adds a haunting, emotional layer that perfectly complements the tone of the film. We'll talk about how the technical elements enhance the storytelling and pull you deeper into the characters' journeys. But that's not all. We're also going behind the scenes. We'll talk about the film's pre-production process, how the script was developed, what inspired the filmmakers to tell this kind of story, and how the project came together. You'll learn about the casting process, the challenges during filming, and how the team worked to create such a raw and emotional final product. We'll also talk about the film's post-production, including editing choices that made the multi-narrative structure flow smoothly, as well as the budget and how the film performed at the box office. I'll also be giving you a brief review of the story, without spoiling any major plot points, so that even if you haven't seen it yet, you can get a sense of what to expect. We'll discuss how the character stories are not just fictional tales, but real-life reflections of issues that many people face in today's internet-driven society. The film doesn't give easy answers, but it does make you think and feel deeply. Then we'll move on to the cast. Disconnect features a talented ensemble including Jason Bateman, Alexander Skarsgård, Paula Patton, Hope Davis, Andrea Riseborough, and Frank Grillo, among others. We'll discuss each actor's performance, what role they played, and how their characters contributed to the film's emotional impact. You'll see how their performances brought authenticity and rawness to the screen, making the film's message even more powerful. And finally, we'll go over some interesting and lesser-known facts about the film, things you probably didn't know, but will definitely appreciate once you do. These facts will give you more insight into the making of the movie and help you understand the director's intentions and the choices made during production. So friends, I sincerely request you to watch this video till the very end because there's so much valuable information packed in here. Whether you've already seen Disconnect or are just hearing about it now, this video will give you a new perspective on why this film matters, what makes it so moving, and why it remains relevant even years after its release. So let's begin our journey into the world of Disconnect and uncover the emotional, technical, and artistic layers of this unforgettable film. All right, friends, now let's really dive into the story of Disconnect 2012. Not just skim the surface, but plunge deep into the tangled web of people, devices, emotions, and choices that this film throws at us with brutal honesty. This is not your typical Hollywood drama, where everything falls neatly into place by the end. No, sir. This is storytelling that feels like real life, messy, unpredictable, sometimes cruel, but always deeply human. The film starts off by throwing us into the digital chaos of the modern world. No slow build-up, no long introductions, just bam. You're in it. We're handed multiple storylines, each one unfolding like a separate tab in your brain. And at first you might think, wait, what does this have to do with anything else? But that's the genius of it. These aren't just separate stories, they're parts of a bigger, invisible emotional network. Think of it like Wi-Fi signals. You can't see them, but they're connecting everything behind the scenes. Let's begin with Ben Boyd, a teenage boy who becomes the emotional heart of the film. He's shy, introverted, and clearly more comfortable behind a computer screen than in a crowded school hallway. His father, Rich Boyd, played by Jason Bateman, is a workaholic lawyer who means well but is more plugged into his phone than his own son's life. And then boom, Ben becomes the target of a cruel online prank. Two kids from his school, out of boredom or insecurity or just teenage cruelty, decide to catfish him. They pretend to be a girl, build up an emotional connection, then humiliate him by revealing it was all a joke. Sounds like a prank, right? But the consequences are devastating. Ben, emotionally fragile, attempts suicide. And just like that, the story turns. Rich is yanked out of his workaholic bubble and forced to reckon with the emotional void in his family. Suddenly, he's not just a lawyer. He's a father trying to save a son he never really knew. But before you can fully absorb that heartbreak, the film shifts. We meet another couple, Derek and Cindy Hull. They're financially stable. They live in a nice home. But emotionally, they're falling apart. Their marriage is cold, distant, and unspoken resentments are building like a pressure cooker. Then they get hit with identity theft. Someone gets into their bank accounts, steals personal information, and suddenly their money vanishes. But more than that, it's their trust that begins to unravel. They start pointing fingers. Secrets come to light. And in a desperate attempt to find answers, Cindy starts chatting with someone online. Someone who claims to want to help. This stranger becomes a kind of emotional lifeline for her. But here's where the film messes with your expectations. That lifeline? It might just be another lie. Another layer of manipulation. You're never quite sure. And that tension is what makes this part of the story so gripping. Next up, we have Nina Dunham, a young TV reporter chasing a big story. She finds Kyle, a teenage boy working in an adult cam chat business. He performs on camera for paying strangers. She sees an opportunity for an explosive expose, a chance to make a name for herself. But this isn't just about headlines. Nina gets emotionally invested. She promises Kyle that she'll protect him, that she's on his side. But the deeper she gets, the murkier the moral lines become. Can she tell Kyle's story without hurting him? Is she helping him or exploiting him for ratings? And what happens when Kyle's boss, the man running the campsite, starts threatening both of them? This storyline hits hard because it challenges you. Who's the victim? Who's to blame? There are no easy answers. But hold on, we're not done yet. Remember those boys who bullied Ben online? One of them, Jason, isn't a one-dimensional villain. He's just a kid, scared and confused, trying to please a demanding, emotionally distant father, Mike Dixon, an ex-cop turned security expert. Mike preaches discipline, order, and control, but he has no idea his own son is spiraling into guilt over what happened to Ben. Jason watches his dad try to find the cyberbully, not realizing it's his own son he's chasing. The tension builds as Jason struggles with the consequences of his actions and the fear of being found out. It's powerful. You see how the cycle of disconnection continues. Parents who don't listen, kids who can't talk, and silence that turns deadly. Now here's where the film's structure really shines. These stories don't just run side by side. They echo each other. A father ignoring his son. A mother trying to feel heard. A teenager longing for connection. A journalist searching for purpose. Every character is looking for something real in a world filled with fake usernames, stolen data, and broken communication. And the film lets these stories intersect in ways that are subtle but meaningful. A court case here, a news story there, a shared glance between strangers, and suddenly the lines between these separate lives begin to blur. And the narrative doesn't wrap everything up with a pretty bow. Oh no, Disconnect is too honest for that. What you get instead are emotional collisions, realizations, apologies that come too late, moments of silence that say more than words ever could. You watch these people break down, reach out, lash out, and finally, sometimes, find a spark of human connection again. Not always, but sometimes. And that's what hits hardest, because that's real life. So no, Disconnect doesn't follow the classic three-act structure. It doesn't spoon-feed you a resolution. It doesn't tell you who's right or wrong. Instead, it puts a mirror in front of you and asks, are you paying attention to the people around you? Are you connected in the ways that matter? Or are you just online? This movie doesn't just tell a story, it throws you into the center of it. And you'll come out the other side not just entertained, but shaken, moved, and maybe even changed. That, my friends, is storytelling at its most powerful. Let's go deeper, friends, because the magic of Disconnect doesn't come from just the plot. It pulses through the people. This isn't a movie where characters are just chess pieces moving around to push the story forward. Oh no. Here, the characters are the story. Each one is built with layers, like digital profiles stacked with public smiles and private shadows. And the deeper you look, the more you find. The film doesn't spoon-feed who's good or bad. It lets you sit in the discomfort, the nuance, and that's what makes these characters unforgettable. Let's begin with Rich Boyd, the high-functioning, emotionally distant father played by Jason Bateman. At the start, he's a familiar type, professionally sharp, personally checked out. He's glued to his phone, multitasking like a machine, but emotionally, he's miles away from the people who matter. He doesn't mean to be a bad dad. He's just busy, distracted, wrapped up in everything except his own son's emotional well-being. But when Ben, his quiet, introverted teenage son, is devastated by a cyberbullying prank and ends up in a coma, Rich's entire world shatters. And here's where the transformation kicks in, not in a grand, movie moment kind of way, but in small, devastating pieces. We see Rich slowly peel back the armor of workaholism. He starts asking questions. He listens more. He reads his son's online messages and finally sees him, not just as his child, but as a person with real, unspoken pain. His arc isn't about redemption. It's about realization. And that quiet journey toward emotional vulnerability is one of the most powerful in the film. Now let's talk about Ben Boyd, who, believe it or not, might be one of the most emotionally present characters in the story, even while spending much of it unconscious. He's not your typical angsty teen. He's gentle, artistic, introspective. He reaches out to the world the only way he knows how, through chat rooms, music, and words. And when those private spaces are violated in the cruelest way, his silence screams. What makes Ben's character unforgettable is that we understand him through others, through his playlist, his poetry, the gaps in his father's memory. Ben becomes the emotional compass for the story. The pain inflicted on him sets the tone for the entire film, and it forces every character connected to him to confront their own failings. Enter Jason Dixon, the teenage boy who, along with his friend, catfishes Ben as part of a prank. At first, you want to hate him. He's smug, careless, playing with emotions like it's a game. But then the camera lingers a little longer on Jason. You start to see the cracks. His father, Mike Dixon, is a retired cop, emotionally rigid, rule-bound, and cold as steel. Jason doesn't talk to his dad. He obeys him. There's no space for emotion in their house, no space for softness. And so, when Jason starts to feel genuine guilt over what happened to Ben, he doesn't know what to do with it. He hides it, buries it, but it eats away at him. This is where his character becomes Rich. He's not just the villain of a side story. He's a boy trying to understand the damage he caused and how to carry that weight without collapsing under it. His growth is subtle, not marked by big speeches or breakdowns, but by shifting expressions, long silences, and one key moment of emotional honesty that completely changes how we see him. Then there's Mike Dixon, the father and possibly the hardest character to crack. He's stern. He's traditional. He believes in authority, control, and silence. He's so consumed with his job and his sense of right and wrong that he completely misses what's happening in his own home. His son is emotionally drowning right in front of him, but Mike doesn't notice because noticing would require vulnerability, and that's something he's spent his life avoiding. Mike's arc is about letting go of that control, even just a little, and facing the truth that he's raised a son he doesn't really understand. His transformation comes in micro moments, but they land like gut punches. A glance, a realization, a look of helplessness from a man who thought he was in control. Now shift over to Derek and Cindy Hull, a couple whose story is less explosive, but emotionally just as rich. Their marriage is unraveling, thread by thread. On the surface, they have everything: a home, jobs, comfort. But underneath, there's a giant silence growing between them. When they become victims of identity theft, that silence turns into suspicion. Derek is a former Marine who processes everything through logic and control. Cindy, on the other hand, is lonely. She's aching for connection, for someone to hear her, not just live beside her. When she starts an online emotional affair with a stranger who claims to be helping them with the investigation, it's not just infidelity, it's her way of screaming, "Look at me. See me." The beauty of their arc is that it's messy. They don't suddenly fall back in love. They argue. They blame each other. But in those arguments, there's honesty. Honesty that wasn't there before. And that's where their growth lies. Not in resolution, but in confrontation. And now we arrive at Nina Dunham, the journalist, and Kyle, the teenage boy working as a performer on an adult campsite. Their relationship is the most ethically complex of the entire film. Nina wants to help. She wants to expose the predatory business that exploits boys like Kyle. But her motivations aren't pure. She wants the story. She wants the acclaim. And somewhere in between, she genuinely starts to care. Kyle is fascinating. He's street smart, emotionally walled off, and far older than his age in some ways. But deep down, he's still a kid looking for a way out. He doesn't want to be seen as a victim, yet he yearns for safety and truth. The power dynamic between him and Nina keeps shifting. Sometimes he holds the cards. Sometimes she does. But neither is really in control. What happens between them is intense, emotional, and at times uncomfortable to watch. But it's real. It's two people trying and failing to connect across a gap that's much larger than either of them anticipated. And that's really the thread that ties every character together in Disconnect. Each one is searching for love, forgiveness, validation, escape, redemption. And they're doing it in a world where everyone is always plugged in but rarely present. Their growth isn't linear. Some of them crash. Some of them change. Some of them cling to old patterns until the very end. But they all move. They all evolve. And you feel like you've gone on a journey with them, not just watch them from afar. So if you're the kind of viewer who watches movies and finds yourself thinking about characters for days afterward, who lies in bed wondering what they're thinking, what they're feeling, Disconnect will absolutely get under your skin. These characters don't just live on the screen. They stick with you. They haunt you. Because they're not just fictional, they're reflections of all the things we try to hide, even from ourselves. Let's dive even deeper into the directorial brilliance of Disconnect, because what Henry Alex Rubin pulls off here is no small feat. He's essentially juggling three complex stories, each one emotionally heavy, morally layered, and filled with characters who are slowly unraveling. And instead of turning this into a chaotic mess or a fragmented anthology, he crafts a unified, emotionally cohesive experience. And he does it not by throwing style at the screen, but by using style as a tool, almost like a silent collaborator that works in tandem with every performance and every theme. His direction doesn't scream for your attention, it sinks into you. Quietly, deeply, unshakably, Rubin approaches the material with a kind of emotional X-ray vision. He's not content to just show you what's happening. He wants you to feel what's not being said. That's the real secret sauce of this movie. Take a scene where a character is sitting in front of a screen, not speaking. In another film, that might be dead air. But in Rubin's hands, it's a pressure cooker. You feel the weight of the pause, the unsent message, the unread comment. He turns silence into tension and inaction into drama. That's not just good directing, it's understanding human behavior on a whole other level. Let's talk about atmosphere. Rubin's control over the mood of this film is laser-focused. There's this persistent, low-frequency unease that hums underneath every frame. Even in scenes that should feel safe, a couple sitting on a couch, a kid chatting on his computer, a dad cooking dinner, there's a tension that something's not right. And it's not because of the plot twist coming. It's because Rubin has already told your gut that this world is cracked. He uses lighting, composition, pacing, and even background noise to send subliminal messages to the viewer. You can almost hear the emotional static between people. They're in the same room, but galaxies apart. Rubin captures that alienation so well, you start to feel it yourself. And don't get me started on the editing. It's sharp but never flashy. Scenes are cut to maximize tension, not through speed, but through restraint. Rubin lets moments stretch to the point of discomfort, and then, asterisk snip asterisk, he pulls you away just as you're starting to settle into the emotion. It's disorienting, yes, but purposefully so. It mirrors how disconnected all the characters feel from one another. You're not given the emotional release you expect, because they're not getting it either. It's brilliant. Now let's take a minute to appreciate his visual metaphors. Rubin uses screen space like a sculptor. Ever notice how often characters are framed behind glass, in reflections, or through screens? It's not just pretty camera work, it's symbolic. These people are always behind something. A phone, a computer, a facade. Rubin doesn't hit you over the head with it, but once you notice it, it's everywhere. He visually traps his characters, showing us that even when they're trying to reach out, they're still separated by fear, guilt, shame, technology. It's subtle, sure, but it burns into your subconscious and adds a whole other layer of meaning to even the simplest shot. Another genius stroke? How Rubin respects stillness. He's not afraid of letting a shot linger. No dramatic zoom-ins. No quick cuts to keep you on edge. He gives you space to watch people just exist. And in those still moments, he lets his actors do the heavy lifting. A twitch of the eye, a lip tremble, a sudden inhale. These small gestures carry the weight of entire monologues, and Rubin captures every single one like a hawk. That takes trust in your cast and in your own instincts as a director. Speaking of cast, the way Rubin handles ensemble direction is a masterclass in itself. This isn't a star vehicle with one actor hogging the spotlight. It's a mosaic of lives, each one rich and complicated, and Rubin gives everyone their moment without overloading the screen. He knows when to cut away and when to hold. He knows who needs a close-up and who needs to be shown at a distance. He gives equal emotional weight to a grieving father, a lonely teenager, a desperate reporter, a disillusioned couple. No one is treated as filler. No character is there just to move the plot. And that balance, that's incredibly hard to pull off without losing focus, but Rubin does it with surgical precision. And let's not forget how modern this movie feels without being trendy. Rubin doesn't try to dazzle you with high-tech visuals or flashy gimmicks to show that this is a film about the digital age. Instead, he grounds everything in realism. Text messages are integrated into the story, but not with giant bubble pop-ups or chirpy alerts. Video chats are grainy and awkward, just like in real life. He captures the ugliness of screens, not the bright, beautiful kind you see in tech commercials, but the harsh blue glow of a late-night scroll. He's not interested in making technology look cool. He's interested in showing how it warps connection, isolates people, and creates echo chambers of pain. That's a director who's not just keeping up with the times, he's critiquing them. What Rubin really nails, though, is his ability to orchestrate emotion. Not manipulate it, not force it. He creates a space where emotion naturally builds, layer by layer, until it bursts. And when it does, it doesn't feel scripted, it feels like life. Messy, quiet, sometimes even anticlimactic. But it hurts in all the right ways. That kind of emotional direction isn't just about talent, it's about empathy. And Rubin directs like someone who feels everything, even if he never puts it into words. So yes, Henry Alex Rubin may not be a household name like some big-budget directors, but what he accomplishes in Disconnect is nothing short of masterful. He takes a web of fragile, messy, beautiful human stories and ties them together with invisible threads of emotion, silence, and truth. And he does it with grace, subtlety, and a deep, deep understanding of what it means to feel alone in a connected world. His direction doesn't just guide the film, it defines it. All right, let's really unpack the performances in Disconnect, because this cast delivers a masterclass in subtlety and emotional depth that deserves all the spotlight. What's truly remarkable is how each actor breathes such genuine life into their characters that you forget you're watching a scripted drama. There's no hint of pretense here, just raw, lived-in performances that feel like real people caught in heartbreakingly real situations. Starting with Jason Bateman, who most of us know from his comedic or lighter dramatic roles, Disconnect shows a completely different side of his talent. As Rich Boyd, he's a man drowning in guilt and regret, and Bateman masterfully conveys all of this with minimal dialogue. There's a world of pain behind his eyes, a simmering panic just beneath the surface. You watch him sitting silently at his son's bedside, and it's wrenching because he's holding back so much. It's not a theatrical breakdown. It's a quietly devastating display of a father's helplessness. Bateman's restrained performance anchors the film's emotional core. He communicates so much through just a glance or a tightened jaw, making Rich's internal struggle both palpable and profoundly relatable. Then there's Andrea Riseborough as Nina Dunham, whose performance is a powerhouse of complexity. She perfectly captures the contradictions of her character, the drive and ambition that push her to uncover uncomfortable truths, but also the moral ambiguity that makes you question how far she's willing to go. Riseborough as Nina is tough and guarded on the surface, but Riseborough lets subtle cracks appear in her armor, moments of doubt, vulnerability, and loneliness that humanize her. She's not just a reporter chasing a story. She's someone grappling with her own sense of connection and identity in a fractured world. The way Riseborough balances toughness with tenderness is captivating, and it adds a rich layer to the film's exploration of ethical boundaries. Frank Grillo's portrayal of Mike Dixon, the ex-cop turned private investigator, brings a steady, grounded energy to the film. Grillo avoids turning Mike into a cliched tough guy, and instead delivers a nuanced performance full of quiet desperation and integrity. In scenes where Mike confronts the fallout of his surveillance work, Grillo shows a man wrestling with the consequences of his past decisions without falling into melodrama. His restrained delivery and subtle emotional shifts make Mike feel like a real person, caught in moral gray areas that resonate deeply. Now, the younger actors in Disconnect bring some of the film's most heart-wrenching moments to life. Colin Ford as Ben Boyd, the troubled teenager, delivers a performance filled with quiet pain and yearning. He's not your typical angsty teen. Ford plays Ben with an authenticity that makes his loneliness and vulnerability almost tangible. His awkward, hesitant interactions with Haley Ram's character feel painfully real, the kind of stilted exchanges that happen when people desperately want to connect but don't know how. Haley Ram matches Ford's subtlety, bringing a nuanced blend of innocence and complexity to her role. Together, their chemistry is fragile and genuine, highlighting the tragic consequences of isolation and misunderstanding. Alexander Skarsgård and Paula Patton, playing Derek and Cindy respectively, portray a marriage unraveling under the weight of emotional distance and secrets. Skarsgård's Derek is stoic and shut down, and he captures the quiet desperation of a man who feels emotionally trapped. His performance is full of small gestures, a lingering look, a tight grip on a coffee cup that speak volumes about his internal conflict. Patton's Cindy, meanwhile, is raw and vulnerable, carrying the emotional weight of grief and neglect. She gives a performance that's both heartbreaking and infuriating, perfectly embodying a person caught in the downward spiral of lost connection. Their scenes together crackle with tension and unresolved pain, making their relationship one of the film's most compelling arcs. Max Thieriot as Kyle, the teenager entangled in online sex work, delivers a surprisingly layered performance. Thieriot avoids turning Kyle into a caricature or a victim. Instead, he plays him with a blend of street-smart toughness and underlying vulnerability. His interactions with Nina, Andrea Riseborough, are charged with a complicated mix of trust, suspicion, and longing, creating an intense dynamic that feels unpredictable and real. Thieriot's ability to balance toughness with tenderness adds depth to a role that could easily have been one-dimensional. Even the smaller roles pack a punch. Michael Nyqvist, in a brief but memorable part, brings a calm intensity that lingers in the background like a shadow. Jonah Bobo, playing Jason Dixon, the teenager responsible for cyberbullying, delivers a convincing portrayal of a confused and guilt-ridden kid. He's not a villain, just a kid making terrible choices, and Bobo's performance captures that messy reality without resorting to stereotypes. What ties all these performances together is a shared sense of understatement. No one in this film is performing for the camera. Instead, they're inhabiting their characters fully and authentically. The emotional weight comes not from shouting or dramatic outbursts, but from the quiet, often uncomfortable moments when a character says too little or too much, when they flinch under a gaze, when a pause in dialogue speaks louder than words ever could. These actors excel at conveying complex emotions with minimal dialogue, which makes every glance and gesture count. This ensemble's chemistry is also worth noting. Despite the different storylines, the actors create a consistent emotional world where each character's pain, fear, and hope ripple across the film's narrative. You don't just see isolated performances. You see a web of interconnected lives, each performance adding layers of meaning to the others. It's this intricate interplay that makes Disconnect feel so real and so affecting. In the end, the performances in Disconnect are what truly bring the film's themes of alienation, technology, and human connection to life. They transform what could have been a cold, clinical exploration of modern problems into a deeply moving portrait of people struggling to be seen and heard in an increasingly disconnected world. Each actor brings something unique and vital, making the film not just believable, but unforgettable. All right, let's dive even deeper into the cinematography of Disconnect, because this film is a perfect example of how visual storytelling can elevate a narrative in profound ways. The way the camera works here isn't just about capturing scenes. It's about creating an immersive emotional landscape that pulls you right into the fractured world of the characters. The cinematographer's choices in angles, lighting, framing, and movement don't just illustrate the story. They embody the themes of disconnection, isolation, and the cold impact of technology on human relationships. First off, the framing throughout Disconnect is nothing short of genius. One of the most recurring visual motifs is the use of barriers, literal and figurative, that separate the characters. Glass surfaces like windows, phone and computer screens, mirrors, and even door frames crop the frame in ways that trap characters inside invisible cages. For example, you'll see shots where a character's face is partially obscured by the edge of a laptop screen, or where their reflection in a window is the only thing visible. These framing choices are more than just stylistic. They're a constant visual reminder that these people are emotionally and physically isolated from each other despite being connected digitally. It's a brilliant way to translate the film's core theme into a visual language that audiences feel intuitively, even if they're not consciously aware of it. The lighting design deserves special praise because it reinforces mood and atmosphere so effectively. Rather than relying on warm, natural light that feels inviting, the film opts for cool, desaturated tones that evoke the chilly glow of electronic screens. This bluish, grayish light bathes most interiors, casting long shadows and creating a sense of emotional coldness. It's as if the technology that connects the characters is also draining warmth and life from their worlds. In some scenes, the lighting is harsh and fluorescent, emphasizing sterile, clinical environments like hospitals or police stations where humanity feels muted. But the cinematography is also sensitive to moments of tenderness. When characters experience fleeting warmth or genuine connection, the light softens and glows with a subtle golden hue, visually highlighting these rare moments of hope in a bleak landscape. Camera angles are another key tool used with precision to shape our perception of the story. The film frequently employs low-angle shots that make characters appear small and vulnerable within their surroundings. This isn't about grandiosity or heroism. It's about emphasizing how powerless or overwhelmed they feel. Conversely, there are high-angle shots looking down on the characters, visually diminishing them and reinforcing their loneliness or entrapment. One particularly striking technique is how the camera sometimes feels voyeuristic, peering in on private moments through slightly obscured or off-center shots, as if we're spying on these disconnected lives unfolding in real time. This enhances the feeling of intrusion and highlights how the digital world can invade the most intimate spaces. The movement of the camera is deliberately restrained, which is a brilliant choice because it gives scenes room to breathe and emotions to unfold naturally. Instead of rapid cuts or sweeping crane shots, the film favors slow tracking shots and static frames that hold on characters for longer than usual. This lingering gaze forces us to sit with their discomfort, confusion, or pain. It also mirrors how technology often forces us to watch others from a distance without truly engaging. When the camera does move, it does so with purpose, a slow push into a character's face to catch a flicker of emotion, or a tracking shot that follows someone wandering aimlessly, lost in their thoughts, or in a crowded space where they still feel alone. These movements aren't just technical. They're emotional gestures that deepen our connection to the story. Color grading throughout the film leans heavily into muted, desaturated palettes. Think cold blues, grays, and washed-out earth tones. This visual choice strips away any sense of vibrancy and underscores the bleakness of the characters' lives. When you watch the film, you feel that chill in the air, not just because of what's happening on screen, but because of how it looks. Occasionally, warmer tones sneak in, soft amber or gentle reds, that act like visual beacons of hope or moments where human connection pierces the cold digital fog. These splashes of warmth stand out all the more because they're so rare and carefully placed. Negative space is used cleverly throughout the film to heighten the feeling of isolation. Characters are often surrounded by vast, empty areas within the frame that seem to swallow them whole. This isn't just a compositional choice, it's an emotional statement. The emptiness visually conveys the emotional void many of the characters inhabit, making loneliness a tangible, almost physical presence on screen. You might see a character sitting at a dinner table with an empty chair across from them, or alone on a bench in a large, sterile room with no one nearby. These visuals speak volumes about the emotional distances between people in the digital age. There are also moments where the cinematography creates intense tension through its use of claustrophobic framing. Tight close-ups on faces, handheld shots that sway slightly as if capturing instability, and scenes where the camera presses in on characters in confined spaces make the viewer feel the growing pressure and anxiety that the characters experience. It's a visual way to put us in their shoes, to share their suffocating sense of being trapped, not just physically, but psychologically. The contrast between the artificial glow of screens and the natural world is another interesting visual element. Scenes set outdoors or in natural light often feel like brief respites from the emotional weight of the story, offering a visual break with softer, more natural lighting and colors. But even these moments are tinged with melancholy, reminding us that the disconnection these characters feel isn't just about technology. It's about real, human loneliness that no amount of screen time can fix. The cinematographer also uses reflections and shadows to great effect. Reflections often symbolize duality or the fractured sense of self that the characters grapple with. One of the most striking sequences visually is when the film shows a crowded urban setting, but everyone is head down, absorbed by their phones, oblivious to each other. The camera pans across the sea of faces illuminated by their screens, creating a haunting tableau of modern alienation. It's not just a shot, it's a statement, capturing the core message of the film in a single, unforgettable image. In essence, the cinematography in Disconnect is a silent storyteller, weaving its own narrative through light, shadow, framing, and movement. It creates an immersive atmosphere that makes you feel the isolation and yearning of the characters on a visceral level. This visual language is what sets the film apart, turning a cautionary tale about technology and human connection into a haunting sensory experience that stays with you long after you've watched it. It's a perfect example of how the camera can do more than just record. It can speak. All right, let's really unpack the editing and pacing of Disconnect, because this is where the film's heartbeat really starts to thump in a way that deeply affects how you experience the story. Editing might often be an unsung hero, but here, It's a masterclass in how rhythm and flow shape emotion, tension, and engagement without ever feeling artificial or forced. The way Disconnect cuts between stories, holds on moments, and uses silence is like a carefully composed symphony, every note placed for maximum impact. From the very beginning, the film's editing establishes a tone of careful observation rather than rapid-fire action. It doesn't rush you through the plot or slam you with constant drama. Instead, it moves with a deliberate, measured pace that feels almost voyeuristic, like you're peeking into people's private lives without their knowledge. Scenes are given room to breathe, and the cuts don't interrupt the emotional currents that flow between characters. This patient pacing allows the weight of loneliness, confusion, and desperation to settle in organically. You start to feel the character's emotional isolation, not because the film tells you about it, but because the editing shows it through lingering shots and quiet moments. One of the editing's greatest achievements is how it weaves together multiple storylines without ever feeling chaotic or disjointed. The film juggles several characters' lives, each with their own distinct conflicts and emotional arcs, but the editor expertly balances them, giving each storyline just enough space before smoothly shifting focus. The transitions aren't abrupt or jarring. Instead, they flow like currents in a river, sometimes connecting stories thematically, sometimes visually, sometimes emotionally. This approach not only keeps you engaged, but deepens the film's core theme, that in our digital age, our lives might seem separate, but they're actually deeply intertwined. The use of cross-cutting is particularly clever. When the film moves from one tense or emotional moment to another in a different storyline, it often creates a dialogue between those scenes. For example, a sequence showing the rising tension of a bullied teenager might cut to a struggling parent trying to reconnect with their child. These juxtapositions highlight parallels in their experiences, even if the characters themselves remain unaware of each other. This technique creates a rhythm that builds emotional resonance without relying on a traditional narrative structure. It's like the editor is orchestrating a conversation between separate lives, pulling you into a broader emotional context. Another key aspect of the editing is how it manages pacing, by varying the tempo throughout the film. Some sequences unfold slowly, almost languidly, letting the emotional weight of the moment seep into the viewer. These slower passages aren't fillers, they're emotional anchors, offering a chance to absorb the depth of the character's struggles. Other scenes pick up speed, especially during moments of tension or crisis, providing bursts of urgency that snap you to attention. This ebb and flow prevent the film from feeling monotonous or flat. Instead, it mirrors the unpredictable rhythms of real life, where moments of calm and chaos often alternate without warning. What's truly masterful is the editor's use of silence and stillness. In many modern films, silence is quickly cut away or filled with music or noise, but here, the editing allows pauses to stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable, yet deeply meaningful. These moments, when dialogue halts and the camera lingers on a character's face or a quiet room, speak volumes. They create space for the viewer to sense the invisible walls between people, the awkwardness, the fear, or the grief that words can't capture. It's a bold choice because it demands patience from the audience, but it pays off by making the emotional beats hit harder and feel more authentic. Transitions between scenes often rely on subtle visual or thematic cues rather than abrupt cuts. For example, the film might hold on a glowing computer screen for a beat longer, then dissolve into another character's screen or a similar blue-lit environment. These fluid transitions create a poetic flow that links disparate stories and underscores the pervasive presence of technology in their lives. It's a clever editing strategy that keeps the narrative cohesive and visually unified, even though the characters themselves lead disconnected lives. The film occasionally employs split screens or parallel editing to emphasize the disconnect and simultaneous isolation experienced by its characters. Watching two different but emotionally linked scenes unfold side by side not only energizes the pacing, but visually reinforces the central theme of separation amid proximity. These split-screen moments highlight how people can share the same physical or digital space yet remain worlds apart emotionally. This technique adds a dynamic layer to the film's rhythm, mixing stillness and motion, closeness and distance. It's important to note that while some viewers might find the pacing slow or heavy at times, this is very much an intentional part of the editing's emotional architecture. The film invites you to sit with the discomfort and emotional complexity of its stories, rather than rushing toward resolution or catharsis. This pacing choice makes the characters' struggles feel more real and less melodramatic, creating a sense of empathy and reflection rather than just entertainment. When the narrative reaches moments of crisis or heightened tension, the editing responds by tightening the rhythm. Shots get shorter, cuts come faster, and the pace accelerates to reflect the rising stakes. This change in tempo jolts the audience, pulling you into the character's emotional turmoil and making those scenes more gripping. The contrast between these fast-paced moments and the otherwise measured flow makes the film's emotional highs feel earned and intense. Sound editing also plays a subtle but crucial role in the film's pacing. Instead of overwhelming scenes with a non-stop soundtrack, the film uses ambient noise, the hum of electronics, or complete silence to shape the atmosphere. These sound choices, combined with the visual editing, create a rhythmic layering that enhances immersion and emotional impact. Silence and sound become part of the film's pacing toolkit, reinforcing the ebb and flow of tension and release. The overall effect is that disconnect moves like a pulse, sometimes slow, deliberate and steady, sometimes quick and urgent, mirroring the characters' internal states and the story's emotional arcs. This editing rhythm guides the viewer through a complex emotional landscape, making the experience both engaging and deeply affecting. In the end, the editing in Disconnect is a subtle but powerful storyteller in its own right. It shapes how the narrative unfolds, how emotions rise and fall, and how you, as the viewer, connect with the characters' fractured worlds. It's a reminder that editing isn't just about cutting scenes together. It's about creating a flow that breathes life into a story and carries you along on its emotional journey. All right, let's really dive deep into the soundtrack and score of Disconnect, because this is where the film's emotional landscape gets painted with sound in a way that's quiet but incredibly effective. The music in this film doesn't roar or demand your attention. Instead, it's like a soft whisper weaving through the scenes, guiding your feelings without ever overpowering the story. It's subtle, deliberate, and smart, knowing exactly when to show up and when to stay silent, which makes the whole experience richer and more immersive. From the very opening moments, the soundtrack sets the tone like a cool, steady breeze that's both calming and a little unsettling. It's not about catchy melodies or big orchestral swells. Instead, the score leans heavily into minimalist, electronic sounds that perfectly mirror the film's central theme, the intersection of technology and human connection. You'll hear gentle synth pads, sparse piano notes, and low, almost hypnotic drones that create an atmosphere both intimate and slightly distant. This sonic texture feels like the digital hum of the modern world itself, always present, often unnoticed, but shaping everything beneath the surface. One of the coolest things about the score is how it uses silence as much as sound. There are many moments in the film where the music fades away completely, leaving only the ambient noises of the characters' environments, keyboard clicks, distant conversations, the soft buzz of electronics. These quiet spaces are not empty. They're charged with tension and emotion. The absence of music in these scenes lets you focus on the characters' subtle expressions, the awkward pauses in conversation, and the invisible walls that separate them. It's like the silence itself becomes a character, emphasizing the loneliness and isolation each person feels. Recurring motifs appear throughout the film, but not as obvious themes. Instead, they're subtle musical phrases or textures that pop up again and again, sometimes as a barely there synth hum, other times as a delicate piano sequence. These motifs act like emotional threads weaving the separate storylines together, reminding you that although the characters live apart, their struggles echo each other. These recurring sounds create a sense of unity amid fragmentation, reinforcing the film's exploration of disconnection in a connected world. The soundtrack's restraint is a big part of what makes it so effective. Rather than trying to manipulate the audience's emotions with loud or dramatic music, the score complements the film's naturalistic style. When tension rises, the music gently intensifies, sometimes with a slow building drone or a repetitive, almost hypnotic beat, but it never overwhelms. It's like the music is breathing with the characters, rising and falling with their emotional tides, rather than trying to push or pull the viewer. This balance keeps the story feeling real and grounded, making the emotional moments hit harder because they feel earned and authentic. Another fascinating element is how the music reflects the characters' inner lives. For the teenagers caught in the dark world of cyberbullying and online danger, the score often incorporates cold, fragmented electronic sounds, glitches, distorted notes, and dissonant textures that mirror their fractured sense of security and growing anxiety. On the other hand, scenes involving adults, especially parents struggling with strained family relationships, sometimes feature warmer, softer sounds, gentle piano or mellow synths that hint at nostalgia, regret, or longing. This sonic contrast gives the film an emotional layering that deepens your connection to the characters, letting you feel their inner turmoil without a word being spoken. Music also plays a crucial role in moments of hope or tentative connection. When characters start to break through their isolation and reach out to each other, the soundtrack subtly shifts. Melodic elements become a little more harmonious or soothing, introducing softer textures that suggest a glimmer of possibility. These changes are delicate and unpredictable, not the kind of predictable cues you might expect, but they reward attentive viewers by signaling emotional breakthroughs and healing. It's like the score is quietly cheering for these fragile moments of connection, encouraging you to hold on to hope amid the darkness. The way the soundtrack blends with the film's sound design is another masterstroke. Instead of sitting separately in the background, the music intertwines with everyday sounds, the tapping of keyboards, the murmur of crowded rooms, the faint beep of notifications, creating an immersive audio environment. This blending blurs the lines between diegetic and non-diegetic sound, making the film's world feel lived in and authentic. It's a reminder that technology isn't just a theme in the story. It's a constant presence in the characters' lives, shaping their emotions and experiences even when they're alone. What makes this soundtrack particularly refreshing is its respect for pacing and mood. The music never rushes in to fill every silence or force the narrative along. Instead, it waits patiently, entering scenes only when it can add real emotional value. This kind of musical discipline means the film's quieter moments feel more poignant, and the emotional peaks hit with greater impact. It trusts the audience to engage with the story on their own terms rather than manipulating them with loud or intrusive scoring. In scenes where tension reaches a boiling point, the music steps up just enough to amplify the stakes. The rhythm might quicken, the synths might grow more insistent, or dissonant tones might creep in, all carefully calibrated to raise your heartbeat without pulling you out of the moment. The soundtrack dances with the narrative here, perfectly timed to accentuate the drama without overshadowing it. This synergy between music and story is a big reason why the emotional roller coaster of disconnect feels so effective and real. Even subtle shifts in the score's tone, like a change in instrumentation or a slight variation in melody, can signal changes in the characters' emotional journeys, keeping you attuned to the story's undercurrents. The music acts like an emotional compass, guiding you through the highs and lows without spelling everything out. To sum it all up, without actually summing it up, the soundtrack and score in Disconnect are like the quiet pulse running beneath the surface of the film. They create atmosphere, build tension, and deepen emotional beats without ever stealing the spotlight. This music doesn't shout. It listens, observes, and gently nudges your feelings, helping you feel the loneliness, fear, hope, and connection that drive the story. It's a perfect example of how great film music can be invisible and unforgettable at the same time, making the whole cinematic experience richer and more meaningful. All right, let's really unpack the themes and messages of Disconnect, because this film isn't just telling a story, it's holding up a mirror to the world we live in, a world where technology is woven so tightly into our lives that it's almost impossible to separate the online from the offline. The movie digs deep into what it means to be connected in an age where connection often feels fake or fragile. It's not just a simple warning about the dangers of the internet. It's a complex exploration of how technology reshapes our relationships, identities, and sense of self in ways that are often uncomfortable, sometimes heartbreaking, but always real. One of the most powerful themes is the paradox of connection versus isolation. We live in a time when people are more reachable than ever. Text, social media, video calls, but disconnect asks the question, are we actually closer? The film's multiple storylines show people glued to their screens, but emotionally distant, caught in a web of loneliness despite their digital networks. For example, the teenagers battling cyberbullying are surrounded by friends online, but feel utterly alone in their pain. Parents try to reach their kids, but are met with silence or defiance. Strangers connect online, but only to deceive or exploit. It's a sharp commentary on how technology can amplify feelings of isolation rather than alleviate them. The film suggests that true connection requires more than just a signal or a message. It demands presence, understanding, and vulnerability, things that screens can't always provide. Closely tied to this is the theme of identity and anonymity. The internet lets people wear masks and craft versions of themselves that may be vastly different from who they are offline. This double life is both a freedom and a trap. Characters in the film hide behind usernames or fake profiles, allowing them to say or do things they wouldn't dare in person. This anonymity breeds both empowerment and danger. Empowerment in giving a voice to the voiceless, danger in enabling cruelty and deception. The film doesn't shy away from showing the dark side of this, like cyberbullies who torment victims from behind their screens, or predators who exploit vulnerability in virtual spaces. But it also hints at the complexity of identity online, where people are searching for acceptance and connection, even if they go about it in harmful ways. The theme pushes viewers to think about how technology can distort reality and challenge our sense of self. Trust is another huge theme the film tackles, and it's portrayed as a fragile, slipping thing in the digital era. Relationships in disconnect suffer because characters struggle to trust one another, whether it's parents doubting their kids, victims unsure who to confide in, or people suspicious of online interactions. The film captures how trust, which is already delicate in real life, becomes even more precarious when mediated through screens. It raises the question, how do you build or rebuild trust when so much of communication is filtered, edited, or anonymous? This theme resonates beyond the screen, reflecting real-world anxieties about privacy, misinformation, and emotional authenticity in the internet age. Generational gaps also come into play as a significant theme. The film vividly portrays the disconnect, not just in name but in reality, between younger characters who live in a digital-first world and adults who often don't understand the rules or dangers of that world. Parents in the film frequently appear confused or powerless when it comes to their children's online lives, highlighting a communication breakdown. This generational clash isn't just about technology. It's about different experiences, languages, and cultures coexisting uneasily. The film uses this tension to show how important empathy, education, and dialogue are if these divides are ever to be bridged. It's a reminder that the digital landscape is still new enough that everyone is learning how to navigate it, sometimes clumsily. Isolation in disconnect is multi-layered. It's physical, emotional, and psychological. The film shows characters who are often alone in crowded rooms or surrounded by family, yet still profoundly isolated. This layered loneliness feels like a commentary on modern life itself, where social media might give the illusion of company, but can deepen feelings of exclusion or invisibility. The film's interwoven narratives reinforce this, showing different faces of isolation: the bullied teen, the worried parent, the betrayed spouse, the lonely adult. It's a mosaic of human experience that drives home the point that disconnection is often the root of so many problems, and that technology, while a tool, can also be a barrier to genuine human interaction. The film's focus on consequences is another strong message. It vividly portrays how a few careless moments online, sending a cruel message, sharing a private photo, trusting the wrong person, can spiral into devastating real-world outcomes. This cause and effect relationship is portrayed with a sense of urgency and realism, reminding viewers that the digital world isn't some detached fantasy, it's real life with real stakes. The movie urges us to be mindful of our online actions, highlighting how technology can amplify mistakes and how easily privacy and dignity can be compromised. This theme encourages responsibility and awareness in a world where what happens online doesn't stay online. What makes Disconnect stand out is how it handles these heavy themes with nuance and realism. It doesn't lecture or preach, but shows lived experiences flawed, painful, and sometimes hopeful. The film invites viewers into the messy middle, where there are no easy answers or clear villains, just people trying to navigate a complex world. This approach makes the themes feel authentic and relatable rather than forced or artificial. In the end, the film's messages about connection, identity, trust, isolation, and consequence all circle back to a fundamental human truth. Despite all the technology, people crave genuine understanding and belonging. Screens and devices can't replace the messy, beautiful complexity of human relationships, and Disconnect asks us to remember that in an age that often forgets it. It's a thought-provoking journey that lingers, making you question your own digital habits and the ways you reach out, or fail to reach out, to the people around you. Let's really dive into the visual effects and CGI in Disconnect, because while this film doesn't flash giant explosions or sci-fi monsters across the screen, its use of visual effects is surprisingly clever and crucial to how the story comes alive. It's a movie that relies heavily on realism and emotional depth, so the effects have to support that without ever drawing attention to themselves. That's no easy feat, but the film manages to pull it off beautifully by blending visual effects so naturally into the narrative that you barely notice them. And that's exactly the point. In Disconnect, visual effects mainly show up as digital interfaces. Think text messages popping up, social media feeds scrolling, video chats, emails, and the kind of online interactions that define the characters' lives. These elements aren't just slapped on as afterthoughts. They're carefully designed to feel completely authentic, mirroring the actual digital spaces we all inhabit. You get a real sense of the character's online world because the effects mimic what we see on our own screens, but are stylized just enough to fit the film's tone. The windows, notifications, and chats blend seamlessly with the live-action footage, creating a layered experience where the digital world feels like a tangible space you can almost step into. This seamless integration helps the audience understand just how pervasive technology is in the characters' lives and how it shapes their experiences. What's really interesting is how the film uses these digital effects not just to show communication, but to amplify emotional stakes. For example, when a character receives a distressing message or is bombarded by notifications, the visuals reflect that overwhelm. Sometimes screens split, text flood in one after another, or messages hover in the foreground. These effects visually communicate the chaos and anxiety of being constantly connected, yet emotionally frazzled. Instead of relying on dialogue alone to express these feelings, the film lets the visual effects do some of the heavy lifting, making you feel the tension almost physically. It's a brilliant way of using CGI and VFX as storytelling tools rather than mere decoration. On the flip side, practical effects and traditional filmmaking techniques hold the emotional core firmly grounded. Close-ups, lighting, makeup, and sound design combine to bring out raw human emotion in scenes where digital effects stay quiet in the background. This balance between real-world grit and digital overlay creates a powerful contrast. The tactile, imperfect reality of the characters versus the cold, clinical precision of technology. It's a visual metaphor that echoes the film's themes. Technology can feel alienating and dehumanizing, but the real emotional stakes happen in the messy, imperfect, flesh and blood world. The subtlety of the visual effects is a big part of what makes Disconnect feel so immersive. The CGI never screams for attention or distracts you with over-the-top spectacle. Instead, it's like a ghostly presence, always there but never overwhelming, perfectly mirroring how technology quietly but persistently invades our lives. Whether it's a single notification popping up or a flood of messages cascading across the screen, these effects capture the relentless pace and pressure of digital communication. And because they're done with such precision and restraint, you stay engaged in the story and emotionally connected to the characters rather than being pulled out by flashy visuals. Another aspect worth mentioning is how the film uses digital effects to build atmosphere and tension. The invisible threats lurking online, cyberbullying, identity theft, deception, are rendered visually through these digital overlays, creating a kind of unseen menace that hovers just beneath the surface. This quiet, creeping sense of danger is amplified by the way the effects echo the characters' growing paranoia and fear. It's a subtle but effective way of turning something intangible, the risks of online life, into something you can almost see and feel, heightening the psychological drama without resorting to cheap scares or gimmicks. Technically speaking, the execution of the visual effects is impressively clean and professional. There are no obvious glitches, awkward transitions, or jarring CGI moments that would break the film's realism. Everything is polished to the point where the digital elements feel like a natural part of the environment, seamlessly woven into the storytelling fabric. This high level of craftsmanship shows how much thought and care went into making the digital world believable and immersive, which in turn helps the audience buy into the story and its stakes. The interplay between practical and digital effects also highlights the film's commitment to emotional authenticity. Practical effects, whether it's a tear rolling down a cheek, a character's anxious fidgeting, or a tense face-off, anchor the story in reality. The digital effects provide context, showing us the invisible networks of communication and threat that surround the characters. Together, they create a layered viewing experience where every frame feels rich with meaning and nuance. Ultimately, the visual effects and CGI in Disconnect aren't just technical features, they're narrative devices that deepen our understanding of the story's themes. They remind us how technology is a double-edged sword. It connects and isolates, empowers and endangers. The film's careful, restrained use of effects keeps the focus on human emotion and real-world consequences, making the experience all the more powerful. It's a masterclass in how to use visual effects not as a distraction, but as a subtle, intelligent way to enhance storytelling and immerse the audience in a world where the lines between online and offline lives blur in complicated and often unsettling ways. All right, let's really unpack the set design and locations in Disconnect, because this film quietly excels at building a world that feels so genuine and textured, it practically breathes on its own. It's the kind of movie where the settings don't just sit in the background, they actively shape the story and deepen your connection to the characters, even though on the surface they might seem ordinary or overlooked. The production design is a masterclass in subtlety, crafting spaces that are instantly recognizable yet rich with emotional undertones. Starting with the homes, these aren't your cookie-cutter movie houses with spotless kitchens and perfect decor. Instead, the film opts for spaces that feel genuinely inhabited, with the kind of lived-in imperfections everyone can relate to. You notice the scattered toys or school books in a kid's room, the peeling wallpaper in a teenager's bedroom, or the worn-out couch in the living room. Each detail whispers a backstory, a family that's stretched thin, people juggling too many worries, or simply the chaos of everyday life. These domestic settings don't just frame the characters, they reveal them. When a character retreats into their personal space, the set design reflects their emotional landscape. For example, a teenager hiding from cyberbullying is shown in a small, dimly lit room cluttered with personal belongings, which visually traps the character in their own world. The sense of isolation becomes palpable, not just through acting, but through the environment itself. Public and workspaces continue this commitment to realism. Offices in Disconnect aren't shiny, futuristic hubs, but rather mundane, sometimes stifling workplaces filled with buzzing computers, flickering fluorescent lights, and tired employees. This choice grounds the adult characters' lives in a familiar reality, where professional pressures weigh heavily and human connection can feel scarce. It's not glamorous, and that's precisely the point. It mirrors the emotional exhaustion that the characters experience behind closed doors. Contrast that with scenes set in internet cafes, which bring a grittier, more urban feel to the film. These spaces feel busy, a little chaotic, and show the other side of the digital divide, where access to technology can be patchy and imperfect. The props here, old keyboards, tangled cables, scratched monitors, lend authenticity and remind us that the digital world is not always pristine or perfect. The way the film uses lighting and color within these spaces is also impressive. Cooler, muted blues and grays dominate the scenes involving isolation, online interaction, or emotional detachment, giving those moments a clinical, almost cold feel. Meanwhile, warmer tones, soft yellows, oranges, and earthy browns appear during scenes of genuine human connection or hope, adding subtle emotional warmth. This color contrast isn't just a pretty visual trick. It's an unspoken emotional guide that helps you feel what the characters are going through without a single word. The interplay of light and shadow in the rooms, streets, and offices draws you deeper into the narrative, creating a mood that's often melancholic, but occasionally hopeful. Speaking of streets and outdoor locations, the film's urban environments feel less like the shiny cityscapes you see in blockbusters and more like real neighborhoods that have stories layered in their pavement cracks and faded billboards. Parks, sidewalks, cafes, and parking lots all contribute to the story by offering spaces where characters intersect, reflect, or attempt to escape their troubles. The city almost becomes a silent character itself, sometimes confining, sometimes liberating. Crowded bus stops or empty late-night streets highlight different emotional beats, emphasizing moments of loneliness or fleeting connection. The film doesn't glamorize these places, which makes their realism hit even harder. Props deserve a special mention here because they play a quiet but powerful role in making the world believable. Everyday objects like smartphones, laptops, chargers, handwritten notes, newspapers, and even random clutter like coffee cups or keys scattered on a table. All these details build a tactile sense of reality. They remind us how technology is both a constant companion and a potential source of stress. For instance, a character's nervous fingers tapping on a smartphone screen during a tense moment says volumes without any dialogue. The props aren't just filler. They become extensions of the character's relationships with the digital world and each other. The film also cleverly uses confined spaces to intensify emotional tension. Small apartments, cramped office cubicles, and narrow hallways all contribute to a feeling of claustrophobia that mirrors the character's psychological stakes. When someone feels trapped by online harassment, by secrets, or by loneliness, these tight spaces visually reinforce that sense of being boxed in with no easy escape. In contrast, the occasional open-air scenes, empty parks, quiet streets, offer much-needed visual and emotional breathing room. These moments highlight the character's longing for freedom, connection, or simply a break from their digital entanglements. All of these elements combine to create a setting that's more than just a place to tell the story. The set design and locations in Disconnect actively participate in the storytelling, enriching the film's emotional impact and making you feel like you're stepping into real lives full of complexity, struggle, and hope. The attention to detail is impressive. Nothing feels overdone or artificial, and that makes the environments feel like a natural extension of the characters' inner worlds. It's this grounded, thoughtful approach to production design that helps Disconnect stand out as a film that truly understands the messy, tangled relationship we all have with technology and each other. All right, let's dive even deeper into the dialogue and script of Disconnect, because this is where the film really shines by capturing the messy, complicated, and often uncomfortable realities of human communication in the digital age. The script works like a finely tuned instrument, balancing everyday language with moments of sharp insight, emotional honesty, and subtle wit that keep you hooked and invested in these characters' lives. First off, the dialogue feels incredibly genuine and lived in. It's not polished or theatrical. Instead, it sounds like real conversations, sometimes awkward, sometimes clipped, sometimes filled with pauses and unfinished thoughts. This natural flow is key to making the characters believable and relatable. For example, when parents and teenagers clash over internet use or privacy, their exchanges are layered with frustration, misunderstanding, and love, all wrapped up in the kind of tension that many families experience but don't always talk about openly. The script nails these small emotional beats, showing how people often struggle to find the right words when the stakes are personal and high. And yet, while the dialogue is natural, it's far from boring. The writers infuse the conversations with moments of dry humor and irony that feel effortless, but add a rich texture to the storytelling. These moments often pop up as characters try to deflect pain or anxiety with sarcastic remarks or quick comebacks. This sharp wit not only provides some much-needed levity, but also reveals character depth, how they cope, protect themselves, or try to make sense of a confusing, overwhelming world. This blend of humor and heart keeps the film from becoming too heavy, allowing audiences to breathe even as the drama intensifies. One of the most impressive things about the script is its emotional nuance. When characters confront betrayal, fear, or isolation, the dialogue tightens and gains weight without becoming melodramatic. The script trusts the audience to feel the subtext, the unsaid words, the hesitation, the way a simple "I'm sorry" or "I don't know what to do" can carry a ton of emotional baggage. These scenes linger because they're grounded in real human vulnerability. The writing doesn't force you to sympathize. It simply shows people trying, and sometimes failing, to connect, and that honesty is powerful. And then there are those unforgettable lines sprinkled throughout the film. These aren't flashy catchphrases or quotable zingers, they're quiet, poignant statements that sum up the character's inner turmoil or the film's larger themes. Phrases about loneliness despite constant connection, the facades people build online, or the yearning to be understood resonate deeply. These lines often come in moments of quiet reflection or confrontation, and their simplicity makes them stick with you long after watching. They're the kind of dialogue that sparks conversations and makes you think about your own relationship with technology and people. What's really masterful about the script is how it juggles multiple storylines and voices without ever feeling chaotic. Each character's dialogue is distinct. Teenagers speak differently from their parents. Victims of cyberbullying have a different tone than those working in law enforcement or the tech industry. This careful attention to voice ensures that every thread feels authentic and vital, weaving together a complex portrait of modern communication. The script respects the audience's intelligence by allowing these different perspectives to play off each other, creating tension, empathy, and insight as the stories intersect. In addition, the script incorporates digital communication, texts, emails, chat messages, social media posts, in a way that feels integral to the story rather than a gimmick. These scenes highlight how much our conversations and conflicts have moved online, where tone is easily misread and words can be weaponized with just a few taps. The dialogue in these digital moments often contrasts starkly with face-to-face speech, emphasizing the impersonal, sometimes cruel nature of online interactions. This clever use of scriptwriting not only advances the plot, but deepens the thematic exploration of how technology shapes and sometimes distorts our relationships. Finally, the pacing of the dialogue keeps the film engaging. The conversations vary in speed and tone, sometimes fast and tense during arguments or moments of crisis, other times slow and reflective when characters reveal their vulnerabilities. This rhythm mimics real life and helps maintain emotional momentum. It allows the audience to catch their breath when needed and then lean in when the stakes rise. In sum, the dialogue and script of Disconnect are a brilliant blend of realism, emotional complexity, and sharp insight. They don't just serve the story, they elevate it, making the film a compelling exploration of how we speak, listen, misunderstand, and ultimately try to connect in an increasingly digital world. It's a script that respects the subtlety of human communication, making every word count and every silence meaningful. All right, let's really unpack how Disconnect handles its genre, because this film doesn't just play by the rules. It rewrites them in a way that's subtle but powerful, and that's what makes it such an engaging watch. On the surface, you might think it's just another drama or thriller about the dangers of technology, but it's way more nuanced than that. The movie blends elements from different genres to create something that feels both familiar and refreshingly original, and this genre mashup is a big part of why the story hits so hard. First, let's talk about how Disconnect steers clear of typical thriller cliches. When you hear thriller, you might expect fast-paced action scenes, ticking clocks, or a clear-cut villain you love to hate. This movie, however, ditches the explosive set pieces and instead focuses on slow burning, psychological tension that's much more grounded in real life. The suspense comes from emotional stakes and the quiet but terrifying dangers of the internet. Things like identity theft, cyberbullying, and online deception. These aren't flashy, over-the-top threats. They're the kinds of dangers that feel close to home, making the tension much more relatable and impactful. So instead of heart-pounding car chases, you get nerve-wracking conversations, texts, and emails that could change someone's life forever. This grounding in reality makes the film's thriller elements feel fresh. The threat is invisible, lurking in the shadows of everyday life, which means you're never sure who's trustworthy or what will happen next. That sense of unpredictability is what keeps you glued to the screen. It's like the film takes the drama genre's focus on human relationships and cranks up the suspense without ever losing the emotional heart. The danger is woven into the fabric of the characters' lives, and that makes every moment feel charged without needing typical thriller fireworks. One of the coolest things about Disconnect is how it juggles multiple storylines, each offering a different slice of the digital age struggle. This ensemble approach breaks the mold of the lone hero or villain and instead paints a complex mosaic of experiences. You get to see things through the eyes of a desperate parent, a vulnerable teenager, a cunning scammer, and others, each with their own motivations and flaws. This approach subverts the usual genre convention where you have a single protagonist chasing a goal or running from a threat. Instead, the movie shows how these different lives intersect and impact one another, adding depth and realism. It's a reminder that in today's world, danger and connection come from many directions, and no one story stands alone. The film also cleverly balances drama and thriller elements without feeling uneven. It doesn't rush the suspense or sacrifice character development for shock value. Instead, the pacing lets tension simmer and build naturally through authentic interactions and escalating consequences. There are moments of quiet reflection and emotional vulnerability that make the stakes feel personal, which enhances the thriller's bite. When things do come to a head, it's with a sense of inevitability rather than cheap surprise, which makes the impact much stronger. Humor is another surprising ingredient in Disconnect as genre mix. It's not a comedy by any stretch, but the script sneaks in small doses of dry wit and irony that serve as little pressure valves. These moments often emerge from the characters' attempts to cope with their stressful, sometimes terrifying situations. The humor is never forced or out of place. It's woven into the dialogue and character interactions in a way that feels natural. This subtle levity adds a human touch and prevents the movie from becoming emotionally overwhelming, reminding us that people often use humor as a shield even in the darkest moments. When it comes to cliches, Disconnect is refreshingly original. The villains aren't one-dimensional caricatures. They're often nuanced or ambiguous, which makes their actions more chilling because they feel believable. Similarly, the victims aren't helpless damsels or moral paragons. They're flawed, complicated people doing their best to navigate a confusing, often hostile digital landscape. Even the law enforcement or tech professionals depicted aren't infallible heroes. They're portrayed with their own struggles and limitations. This refusal to fall into easy moral binaries elevates the film beyond typical genre fare, giving it a grounded and honest feel. Visually and tonally, the film also resists genre stereotypes. Instead of the slick, stylized look of many thrillers, Disconnect opts for a more naturalistic, sometimes gritty aesthetic. This choice supports the film's realistic tone and helps immerse the viewer in the characters' worlds. The color palette, lighting, and shot composition all serve to emphasize the emotional weight and tension without drawing attention away from the story. The camera work doesn't scream for attention, it quietly observes, letting the drama unfold organically. The pacing of the film is another place where genre conventions are carefully tweaked. Instead of a breakneck speed typical of many thrillers, Disconnect adopts a more measured rhythm that mirrors real life. Sometimes slow, sometimes tense, sometimes almost languid. This pacing allows emotional beats to breathe and gives the suspense room to grow naturally. It can feel like you're living through the characters' experiences in real time, which makes the payoff that much more satisfying. In essence, Disconnect uses its drama-thriller blend not as a crutch, but as a canvas to explore timely, complex issues around technology and human connection. It borrows just enough from both genres to create a sense of urgency and emotional depth, but refuses to be boxed in by their typical formulas. This results in a film that feels both timely and timeless, gripping and thoughtful, familiar yet boldly original. The way it handles genre not only enhances the storytelling, but also invites viewers to rethink what thrillers and dramas can do when they embrace the messy realities of modern life. Disconnect is more than just a thriller or drama. It's a smart, insightful exploration of the tangled web that technology weaves around our lives today, and it does so with a nuanced touch that makes the social and cultural commentary feel woven into the story's DNA rather than tacked on. The film pulls no punches in showing how our hyper-connected world, despite all its promises of instant communication and endless information, often leaves us feeling disconnected in the most profound ways. Right away, the movie dives deep into the complexities of contemporary life, tackling issues that are not only timely, but also deeply personal to millions of viewers. What stands out most is how naturally the film integrates these themes into the characters' journeys. This isn't a lecture on the dangers of technology. It's a lived-in experience through the eyes of people caught in the crossfire of digital advances. Whether it's a teenager facing merciless cyberbullying, a mother battling with feelings of helplessness as she tries to protect her child from online predators, or a man struggling with loneliness and the illusion of connection through social media, the film presents these struggles in a way that feels authentic and urgent. The social commentary is embedded in the characters' emotions and decisions, making the audience feel the weight of these issues rather than just observing them from a distance. The paradox of technology as both a bridge and a barrier is at the heart of the film's cultural critique. Disconnect expertly highlights how tools meant to bring us closer can just as easily isolate us. The irony that in seeking connection online, people can end up more isolated and vulnerable is a thread that runs through every storyline. It's fascinating to watch how the film portrays this duality, not just showing the tech as villainous, but as a mirror reflecting human fears, desires, and flaws. This gives the commentary a layered complexity. It's not about blaming gadgets, but understanding how we interact with them and what that says about us. A major cultural theme the film explores is the construction and fragility of online identity. In today's world, where social media profiles, posts, and pictures can shape reputation and relationships, Disconnect digs into how easy it is to create false personas or manipulate perceptions. The film portrays the digital self as something fragile, vulnerable to exploitation and misunderstanding. This raises larger questions about authenticity, trust, and privacy in a world where personal information is currency. It's a commentary that feels especially sharp given ongoing debates around data security, cancel culture, and the pressures to curate a perfect online image. The film's portrayal doesn't come across as preachy, but instead invites viewers to consider the invisible costs of these realities. On the darker side, Disconnect doesn't shy away from the chilling realities of cybercrime and exploitation. What's striking here is the film's balanced approach. It shows the real horrors and consequences without resorting to sensationalism. The predators and scammers are chilling because they are believable, grounded in reality rather than cartoonish villains. This sobering portrayal respects the seriousness of these issues and adds a layer of urgency to the story. At the same time, the film resists turning into a simplistic morality tale, instead presenting these threats as part of a complex social fabric that requires vigilance and understanding. The generational gaps in tech understanding and usage add another fascinating dimension to the film's social commentary. Parents, teens, and authorities all navigate the digital landscape differently, and Disconnect captures the resulting misunderstandings and frustrations with nuance and empathy. This tension is a reflection of real-world challenges, where rapid technological change outpaces education and communication, leading to confusion and conflict. The film shows how these gaps can deepen isolation and mistrust, even within families. This layer of cultural critique enriches the story and makes the characters' struggles feel immediate and relatable to a broad audience. While the film doesn't dive deeply into politics, it subtly raises important questions about privacy, surveillance, and the ethical use of technology. These concerns surface naturally through the characters' experiences rather than overt political dialogue, which keeps the commentary feeling organic. It encourages the audience to think critically about how much control we have over our digital lives and the consequences of living in a world where our actions and information are constantly monitored and exploited. What makes the film's handling of these sensitive topics stand out is the care and respect it shows toward its characters and audience. It doesn't simplify complex issues or offer easy solutions. Instead, it portrays technology as a double-edged sword with potential for both harm and hope. This honest portrayal invites reflection and conversation rather than judgment or fear-mongering. The emotional depth of the film, how it captures fear, shame, hope, and resilience, grounds the social commentary in human experience, making it more powerful and accessible. The film also captures the psychological and emotional toll of living in a digital world. It shows how fear, guilt, isolation, and confusion ripple through individuals and families affected by cybercrime and online harassment. This focus on emotional consequences adds a profound layer to the social critique, making the issues feel tangible rather than abstract. It reminds viewers that behind every headline about cyberbullying or identity theft are real people facing very real pain. In the end, Disconnect uses its storytelling as a platform to explore the complexities of modern life in a way that feels immediate, thought-provoking, and deeply human. Its social and cultural commentary doesn't preach or moralize, but offers a mirror reflecting the challenges, contradictions, and hopes of living in the digital age. By blending empathy with insight and drama with realism, the film creates a conversation about technology and connection that lingers long after the credits roll. This makes the commentary not just relevant, but essential viewing for anyone trying to make sense of the online world and its impact on our daily lives. Disconnect truly excels at pulling the audience into its world, not just through plot twists or suspense, but by forging a strong emotional bond that keeps viewers invested throughout the film. The way the movie delves into the lives of its characters, showing their vulnerabilities, fears, and moments of hope, creates an immersive experience that goes beyond passive watching. You don't just observe the story unfolding. You feel like you're right there with them, navigating the messy, complicated realities of living in a digitally dominated world. One of the most captivating aspects of audience engagement in Disconnect is how it balances tension and tenderness. The film doesn't rely solely on high-stakes drama or shocking moments to keep you hooked. Instead, it layers these with quiet, intimate scenes that resonate deeply. These moments, like a parent's anxious attempt to protect their child or a lonely character's desperate search for connection, are rendered with such authenticity that they linger in your mind long after the scene ends. This emotional pacing creates a rhythm that invites the audience to breathe with the characters, feel their highs and lows, and truly empathize with their struggles. When it comes to moments that evoke strong reactions, the film has a remarkable range. There are scenes so heart-wrenching that you can't help but feel a knot in your stomach as characters face betrayal, loss, or the isolating effects of online cruelty. These aren't just plot devices, they are raw, human moments that tap into universal fears about trust, safety, and belonging. At the same time, Disconnect sprinkles in lighter, sometimes even humorous touches that relieve tension and add warmth to the narrative. This blend of emotion keeps the audience engaged on multiple levels, offering relief when needed, but never undermining the gravity of the story. The film's ability to inspire reflection is another key part of its engagement. After watching, many viewers find themselves thinking critically about their own digital habits, the nature of online relationships, and the real-life consequences of virtual interactions. It raises questions about privacy, identity, and the ways technology can both connect and divide us, sparking conversations that extend beyond the theater or living room. This kind of engagement transforms the viewing experience into an active dialogue, encouraging people to not just consume the story, but to ponder its implications in their own lives. Another fascinating aspect that keeps audiences coming back is the film's layered storytelling. There's a richness in the narrative structure and character development that rewards multiple viewings. Each time you watch, new details emerge, subtle character choices, background interactions, or thematic nuances that deepen your understanding of the story. This complexity adds to the film's replay value and keeps it fresh and engaging, making it more than just a one-time emotional ride. Relatability plays a huge role in audience connection as well. The film tackles issues that feel incredibly relevant and close to home, whether it's cyberbullying, online privacy, or the search for genuine connection in an age dominated by screens. Because so many people have faced or witnessed these challenges in real life, the characters' experiences feel immediate and personal. This relatability builds a bridge between the screen and the viewer, transforming abstract themes into lived emotional realities. In terms of shock and surprise, Disconnect skillfully uses plot twists and reveals that feel organic rather than forced. These moments keep viewers on the edge of their seats, injecting excitement and unpredictability without detracting from the story's emotional core. The balance of suspense and heartfelt drama creates a dynamic viewing experience that's both thrilling and moving. The cast performances amplify the audience's emotional investment. The actors deliver their roles with such sincerity and nuance that the characters' struggles become palpable and believable. This authenticity makes it easy to connect with their journeys and care about what happens to them. The emotional truth in their portrayals invites the audience to step inside their shoes and experience the story from their perspective, intensifying the engagement. What's more, the film invites a communal experience. It's the kind of story that sparks discussions among friends, families, or online communities, whether about the dangers and promises of technology or the deeper human need for connection and understanding. This social aspect of engagement means Disconnect lives on well beyond the initial viewing, as people share reactions, debate themes, and reflect on its messages. In essence, Disconnect manages to engage its audience not just intellectually, but emotionally, socially, and culturally. It's a film that grabs your attention, stirs your emotions in complex ways, and encourages ongoing reflection and conversation. By weaving together gripping storytelling, compelling characters, and relevant social commentary, it creates a rich tapestry of engagement that resonates long after you've watched it. This makes the film not only entertaining but deeply impactful, inviting viewers to feel, think, and connect on multiple levels all at once. When you start comparing Disconnect to other movies in its genre, tech thrillers, cyber dramas, and social issue films about the digital age, it quickly becomes clear that it's playing in a league of its own. It's not just another cautionary tale about the internet's dangers or a flashy thriller packed with hacking jargon and quick edits. Instead, Disconnect takes a more thoughtful, emotionally rich approach that focuses on how technology really affects people's lives beneath the surface. This gives it a kind of depth and maturity that many similar films miss. Take, for example, movies like Unfriended or The Social Network. Both are rooted in digital culture, but they approach their subjects very differently. Unfriended is almost like a horror movie set entirely on a computer screen, using the gimmick of real-time social media interactions to create scares. It's clever but can feel a bit one-note or superficial. The Social Network is more of a biographical drama about the birth of Facebook, rich with sharp dialogue and character study, but focused narrowly on ambition and power within tech entrepreneurship. Disconnect blends a bit of both worlds, but then goes much further. It tells multiple stories at once, showing the internet's impact on a wide range of people and relationships. It's more like a social mosaic than a single focus story, exploring everything from cyberbullying and online deception to the desperate human need for connection. This multi-narrative structure is a smart move because it mirrors the fragmented, interconnected nature of our own digital lives. Instead of following just one character, Disconnect weaves several threads that intersect in surprising ways, giving a fuller picture of the modern tech landscape. This storytelling style is reminiscent of ensemble films like Crash or Babel, which showed how seemingly unrelated stories connect beneath the surface of society. But Disconnect takes this idea and updates it for the internet age, where connections are often virtual, messy, and fraught with misunderstanding. This approach gives the film a contemporary relevance and emotional complexity that's rare in the genre. Then there's the way Disconnect handles its themes. Unlike many tech thrillers that fall into the trap of screaming, "Beware the internet," in a heavy-handed way, this film opts for nuance. It's not a simple morality play or a paranoid rant about online dangers. Instead, it presents a realistic exploration of how technology shapes trust, identity, and vulnerability. The characters aren't just victims or villains. They're complex people struggling to navigate a world where privacy is scarce and authenticity is hard to find. This balanced perspective makes the film feel mature and thoughtful, inviting viewers to think deeply rather than just react with fear or excitement. If you consider the director's style and body of work, Disconnect stands out as a film that prioritizes emotional storytelling over flashy gimmicks. While some tech-related movies might rely on fast pacing, special effects, or convoluted hacking sequences to impress. This film uses a grounded, character-driven approach. The director's vision shapes the movie into a compassionate look at the human side of technology, focusing on how ordinary people cope with extraordinary digital challenges. This makes the movie more relatable and impactful, and it sets it apart from the often cold or technical feel of many genre counterparts. Still, Disconnect isn't afraid to embrace some of the genre staples. There's plenty of suspense, moments of genuine danger, and emotional tension that keep viewers on the edge of their seats. But rather than using these elements for cheap thrills, the film integrates them seamlessly into the characters' personal journeys. This means the suspense always serves a purpose, heightening the emotional stakes rather than just providing action for action's sake. This smart blending of classic thriller elements with deep character work keeps the movie engaging without feeling formulaic or predictable. Visually and tonally, Disconnect also distinguishes itself. Many tech thrillers tend to either glamorize hacking with neon-lit labs and rapid-fire typing, or descend into bleak dystopia. Disconnect opts for a more naturalistic aesthetic that reinforces its realism. The environments feel lived in, the lighting is often subdued, and the camera work is intimate, drawing viewers close to the characters' emotions. This subtle visual style complements the film's focus on authentic human experience rather than spectacle, which again separates it from its more sensationalist peers. When it comes to the digital world's portrayal, Disconnect favors authenticity over exaggeration. It avoids the cliches of hackers typing furiously or omnipotent digital villains. Instead, it presents cyber issues as part of everyday life, something familiar and plausible. This grounded approach makes the stakes feel real and urgent, which can be more terrifying than sci-fi fantasy because it hits close to home. For audiences tired of over-the-top tech thrillers, this realistic depiction offers a refreshing and immersive experience. Moreover, the film's layered storytelling rewards viewers who pay close attention. It's not just a straightforward narrative, but one packed with details, subtle character moments, and thematic threads that encourage multiple viewings. This richness gives Disconnect a longevity that many films in this space lack. Where others might be forgotten after the initial thrill, this movie stays with you, revealing new insights and emotional depths with each watch. In the end, when stacked against other films tackling similar issues, whether they're high-concept sci-fi, social media horrors, or straightforward thrillers, Disconnect manages to blend the best elements of these approaches while bringing something uniquely its own. It's thoughtful without being preachy, suspenseful without losing emotional heart, and relevant without feeling like a lecture. It respects the audience's intelligence and emotional range, making it a standout example of how to tell stories about technology that truly resonate on a human level. So if you're looking for a tech-themed film that's not just about the latest gadget or hacker showdown, but one that digs deep into how technology changes who we are and how we connect, Disconnect is a movie that offers fresh perspectives and genuine emotional impact. It's a smart, compelling, and well-crafted film that earns its place alongside the best in the genre while carving out its own distinctive space. Disconnect weaves symbolism and metaphors throughout its narrative in ways that really invite you to dive deeper, beyond just the surface story about technology and its impact on people. These elements aren't just there for decoration. They actively enhance the film's emotional resonance and thematic richness, giving the audience plenty to unpack if they're paying attention. The way the movie layers these visual cues and recurring motifs makes it feel like a puzzle where every piece connects to a bigger picture about human connection, isolation, and identity in the digital age. Let's start with the most obvious but also most powerful symbol, the very title, Disconnect. This word echoes repeatedly throughout the film, not just as a label but as a multifaceted metaphor. It represents the emotional and social disconnection between people in a world hyperconnected by technology. The irony is thick. Characters are constantly plugged into devices, chatting, texting, posting, yet they often feel lonelier than ever. This contradiction is a central theme, and the film visually drives this home with numerous shots where characters sit alone, bathed in the cold, blue light of their screens, underscoring how technology can sometimes deepen feelings of isolation rather than bridging gaps. The glow of the screens isn't just lighting their faces. It's almost like a barrier, a glow that separates them from the warmth of real human interaction. Screens themselves become symbolic objects throughout the movie. They're portrayed as modern-day masks, windows, and walls all at once. The film frequently shows characters looking through or past these digital devices, but it's clear they're not really seeing each other in a genuine way. The screen becomes a metaphor for how technology can distort reality and how people present curated versions of themselves online. We see characters hiding behind avatars or false personas, which creates tension because what's visible on the screen rarely matches what's real. These digital facades act as masks, allowing people to protect themselves from vulnerability, but also leading to misunderstandings and emotional distance. The film cleverly uses reflections, half-lit faces, and blurry images to visually represent this duality between the online self and the real self. Surveillance and voyeurism are another significant symbolic thread running through Disconnect. The movie creates a subtle but constant feeling of being watched or monitored, which mirrors the real-life concerns about privacy erosion in the internet era. Characters experience cyberstalking, data breaches, and the invasive gaze of strangers and loved ones alike. Cinematography supports this by framing shots with characters partially obscured, using tight close-ups or off-center compositions that suggest someone is spying or lurking just out of view. This visual motif heightens the sense of vulnerability and paranoia, reflecting how in today's digital world, people often feel exposed and unable to escape observation, even in their most private moments. The narrative structure itself can be seen as symbolic. The way the film interlaces multiple storylines, each focused on different characters with unique struggles, mirrors the tangled, interconnected nature of modern digital communication. These intersecting stories form a web, symbolizing how actions in one part of the network ripple through others, sometimes with unintended consequences. This metaphor for interconnectedness highlights both the potential and the peril of online life. A click or message can connect or harm in equal measure. It's a storytelling technique that reminds viewers that behind every online interaction is a real person, full of complexity and emotion. Color and lighting are used thoughtfully as metaphors for mood and emotional states. Cool, desaturated colors dominate scenes of despair, loneliness, or tension, evoking a sense of emotional coldness or detachment. In contrast, warmer, softer hues emerge in moments where genuine human connection or hope breaks through. These visual cues guide the audience's feelings subliminally, enhancing the narrative's emotional beats without needing explicit explanation. It's a classic film technique, but applied here with nuance to reflect the emotional highs and lows of digital communication. Even silence plays a metaphorical role in the film's storytelling. In a world buzzing constantly with digital noise, texts, notifications, social media updates, Disconnect strategically inserts moments of quiet. These silences are powerful, almost like emotional pauses where the characters and the audience are forced to confront what's really missing in all the chatter: authentic connection, empathy, and understanding. Silence becomes a metaphor for emotional emptiness and the invisible gaps technology can't fill, adding depth to the film's exploration of isolation. The film also toys with the metaphor of masks beyond the digital realm. Characters in the real world wear emotional masks too, hiding pain, fear, or shame beneath surface-level interactions. This dual masking, online and offline, speaks to the universal human experience of vulnerability and the defense mechanisms we use to protect ourselves. The movie shows that real connection requires removing these masks, but that's often difficult or dangerous in a world where trust is fragile. Even small props and set pieces carry symbolic weight. For example, phones buzzing incessantly, empty chat windows, or unread messages become visual shorthand for missed opportunities, anxiety, or the overwhelming flood of digital communication that can drown genuine interaction. These everyday objects, so familiar to viewers, are recontextualized as symbols of the emotional turbulence at the film's heart. All these symbolic and metaphorical layers make Disconnect a richly textured film that rewards viewers who engage deeply. It's a story about the digital age, but also about timeless human emotions, loneliness, fear, hope, and the desperate need to be understood. The symbolism never feels forced. Instead, it flows naturally from the characters' experiences and the film's aesthetic choices, creating an immersive, thought-provoking viewing experience. In short, Disconnect uses symbolism and metaphors as invisible threads weaving through its narrative fabric, connecting the characters' inner lives to the broader commentary on technology and society. This gives the movie a poetic quality. Beneath the surface drama lies a meditation on what it truly means to connect in a disconnected world. For anyone who enjoys films that challenge you to look beyond what's obvious and think about the why behind the story, Disconnect offers a treasure trove of hidden meanings waiting to be discovered. Disconnect stands alone as a film, not tied to any franchise or sequel, which gives it a unique place in cinematic and cultural history. It's a snapshot, almost like a time capsule of the early 2010s, a period when the internet and digital communication were exploding into everyday life, but society was still figuring out what all this new connectivity really meant. Watching Disconnect is like stepping into a world on the brink of a digital revolution, where smartphones and social media are becoming household essentials, but the dark side of this connectivity, privacy breaches, cyberbullying, identity theft, is only just starting to come into sharp focus. What's fascinating about Disconnect is how deeply it immerses you in that moment. The film doesn't rely on flashy CGI or futuristic tech to make its point. Instead, it chooses grounded, believable situations that reflect real people's experiences as they navigated this brave new world. Think about how in 2012, Facebook was the king of social media. Twitter was changing how news spread, and the concept of being online was shifting from novelty to necessity. Disconnect captures this perfectly by telling stories about everyday people who face problems that feel as close as your own smartphone. Whether it's a parent dealing with a cyberbullying crisis, a teenager grappling with online identity, or a professional victimized by identity theft. In a way, Disconnect acts as an early cultural document that predicted many ongoing conversations about technology's impact on mental health, privacy, and human connection. Its portrayal is neither sensationalized nor overly technical. Instead, it presents a human-centered view of the digital age's challenges. You get the sense that the filmmakers were tuned into the anxieties brewing beneath the surface of this new era, things people were worried about but hadn't fully articulated yet. And looking back now, years later, many of these issues have only become more urgent and widespread. The film fits neatly into a historical moment when Hollywood and independent filmmakers were beginning to seriously explore the internet as more than just a plot device. It was becoming a character, a setting, and a source of drama in its own right. Disconnect joins the ranks of films like The Social Network or Catfish that delve into how technology shapes identity and relationships, but it stands out by telling multiple intertwined stories, showing the ripple effects of online actions across different lives. This structure underscores a key historical shift. The digital world isn't just a single narrative or a simple tool, but a complex ecosystem affecting people from all walks of life. Because it isn't shackled by franchise expectations, Disconnect can dive deep into these themes with nuance and subtlety. It doesn't need to set up sequels or adhere to pre-established lore, so it can focus on emotional realism and social commentary. This independence allows the film to serve as a cautionary tale for its era, a kind of cinematic reflection on how we were just starting to understand the consequences of our increasing dependence on technology. It's like a conversation starter that invites viewers to think critically about the digital world they're immersed in every day. Another fascinating aspect of Disconnect, as historical context, is how well it predicted the trajectory of digital culture. Many issues the film addresses, cyberbullying's devastating emotional toll, the fragility of online trust, the complexities of privacy in a surveillance-heavy world, have only intensified since the movie's release. It's almost prophetic in how it highlights vulnerabilities that have now become central to social discourse, making the film feel increasingly relevant with each passing year. On a broader cinematic scale, Disconnect reflects a turning point when filmmakers began to shift away from traditional thrillers and dramas towards stories that interrogate contemporary social realities shaped by technology. It's part of a wave of early 21st century films that recognize the internet's profound impact on identity and human connection, moving past surface-level tech tropes to explore psychological and emotional consequences. This shift helped expand cinema's thematic horizons, opening doors for more stories about how technology intersects with everyday life. Disconnect's historical accuracy and immersive portrayal of its era come from focusing on relatable, grounded characters and realistic situations. Rather than exaggerating or romanticizing technology, it depicts the messiness and contradictions of digital life, how it connects us yet isolates us, empowers us yet exposes us. This grounded approach gives the film a timeless quality. Even as technology advances, the core emotional struggles and social dilemmas it presents remain profoundly human and relevant. In summary, while Disconnect is not part of a franchise nor a historical reenactment, it plays a vital role in capturing the spirit of a transformative moment in modern history. It's a cinematic snapshot of the early digital age, full of insights into the promises and pitfalls of our online lives. Watching it today offers both nostalgia and a sobering reminder of how far we've come, and how many of the challenges it raises are still with us. It's a film that not only tells its own story, but also helps us understand the broader story of our society's complicated relationship with technology. All right, let's dive deeper into the budget and box office story of Disconnect, because it's a classic case of an indie film punching above its weight. Unlike the Hollywood blockbusters that come with multi-million-dollar price tags, where studios splash cash on jaw-dropping special effects, A-list stars, and sprawling marketing campaigns, Disconnect operated with a much smaller budget. It didn't need flashy CGI or massive set pieces, so the filmmakers focused on what truly matters: strong performances, authentic storytelling, and creating a believable world that reflects real-life struggles with technology and human connection. This smaller budget actually became a strength. With fewer financial resources to burn through, the production team had to be smart and resourceful. This meant filming in real locations instead of expensive sound stages, relying on practical effects and natural lighting rather than heavy digital enhancements, and letting the actors' talents carry the emotional weight of the story. You don't see any wasted shots or over-the-top sequences here. Everything feels purposeful and grounded. The film's technical aspects, like cinematography and editing, show a polish that you might not expect from a modestly funded project, which speaks to the skill and dedication of the crew behind the scenes. When it comes to box office, Disconnect was definitely not a blockbuster hit, and it didn't dominate ticket sales the way a big-budget thriller or action movie might. Its financial performance was more modest, reflecting both the niche nature of its story and the challenge of attracting a mass audience to a drama focused on internet-related social issues, rather than escapist entertainment. It wasn't designed to be a summer blockbuster or a wide-release tentpole with a massive opening weekend. Instead, Disconnect found its audience gradually, relying on steady interest rather than a huge initial splash. Marketing played a huge role in shaping this trajectory. Without the backing of a massive marketing machine, Disconnect had to depend on targeted strategies. Instead of bombarding audiences with flashy trailers or billboard ads everywhere, the film's promotion focused on film festivals, specialized screenings, and word of mouth among viewers who appreciate socially conscious stories. This approach limited its exposure, but helped build a core following that connected deeply with the themes of the movie. The marketing didn't scream blockbuster, but it whispered must-watch to the right crowd, and that made all the difference in finding an audience that resonated with its message. Critics and audiences who did see Disconnect generally responded positively, praising its timely subject matter and emotional authenticity. While it didn't become a box office sensation, it earned respect for tackling complex issues like cyberbullying, identity theft, and emotional isolation in a nuanced way. These strong reviews and word-of-mouth recommendations helped the film maintain relevance long after its theatrical run, allowing it to find new viewers through DVD sales, rentals, and streaming platforms. This afterlife is a key part of its success story. Disconnect is the kind of film that grows on people, encouraging repeat viewings and thoughtful discussions that keep it alive in the cultural conversation. So, in terms of budget versus production quality and financial returns, Disconnect is a great example of how a modestly funded film can deliver high-quality storytelling without breaking the bank. It didn't need a huge budget to feel polished and emotionally powerful, and its box office numbers, while not astronomical, don't tell the whole story. The film's real victory lies in its ability to engage audiences, spark conversations, and remain relevant as technology continues to shape our lives. It's a reminder that sometimes smart filmmaking and heartfelt stories matter far more than blockbuster budgets and massive ticket sales. All right, let's really unpack where and how you can watch Disconnect so you get the absolute best experience out of this smart, emotionally charged film. Since Disconnect isn't your typical big studio blockbuster that's running on hundreds of screens worldwide, tracking down a theater showing can be a bit of a treasure hunt these days. Unless you're lucky enough to catch a special screening, film festival event, or a revival showing, your best bet to experience the movie is through digital and home viewing options, which actually work really well for this kind of intimate, thoughtful story. Starting with streaming. This is the sweet spot for many viewers nowadays. The film often pops up on popular streaming platforms like Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, or others that cater to indie or socially conscious cinema. Streaming means you don't have to wait for a scheduled showing or a physical disc. You can watch Disconnect whenever it suits you, whether that's a quiet Sunday afternoon or a late-night deep dive into technology's darker side. One of the biggest perks of streaming is the control it gives you. Pause for a moment if a scene hits too close to home, rewind to catch a subtle detail you missed, or binge watch it multiple times to really unpack its layered storytelling. And if you're streaming on a smart TV or projector setup with good sound, those atmospheric, emotional moments really get the space they deserve to shine. If you don't have a subscription to a streaming service hosting Disconnect, digital rental or purchase is the next go-to. Services like iTunes, Google Play Movies, YouTube Movies, and Vudu often have Disconnect available to rent or buy. Renting is perfect if you want to give the film a one-time watch without any long-term commitment, usually for a small fee. You get 24 to 48 hours to stream the film after starting it. Buying a digital copy means you can keep it forever, watch it on multiple devices, and revisit it whenever you want. This option is great if you find yourself wanting to share the film with friends, or if you're the kind of viewer who likes to dissect movies over several viewings, noticing new things each time. For the purists or collectors, grabbing a physical DVD or Blu-ray is still a fantastic way to experience Disconnect. Physical copies often come loaded with bonus content like director commentary, behind-the-scenes featurettes, deleted scenes, or interviews with the cast and crew. These extras can really deepen your understanding and appreciation of the film, kind of like a mini film school lesson that adds context to what you see on screen. Plus, owning a physical copy means you're not reliant on internet connections or streaming rights, which can change or disappear over time. Setting up a movie night around a physical disc, complete with popcorn and a distraction-free environment, brings a different kind of magic to the viewing experience. Now, about where to watch for the fullest impact. This film thrives in an environment where you can really lean into its emotional and social commentary. Disconnect asks you to pay attention, to feel with its characters, and to reflect on the challenges of digital communication and isolation. So, whether you're watching on your TV, laptop, or tablet, try to create a space where you can immerse yourself without interruptions. Dim the lights, turn up the volume just enough to catch every subtle sound cue, and put away distractions like phones or noisy backgrounds. The quiet moments and emotional beats are where the film really shines, and being fully present makes the difference between a good watch and a memorable one. Watching Disconnect with a friend or small group who appreciates thoughtful drama can turn it into an event, sparking discussion afterward about the themes and how they relate to our own lives. Or if you're flying solo, it's a great opportunity to reflect privately on how technology impacts human connection, which makes the film linger in your mind long after the credits roll. In essence, no matter your viewing preference, Disconnect is widely accessible through a variety of modern platforms, each offering unique benefits. Whether you stream it effortlessly from your favorite service, rent or buy a digital copy for flexible viewing, or get hands-on with a physical edition for the full extras experience, the important thing is to give this film the attention it deserves. Pick your perfect setting, get comfy, and prepare for a movie that's as relevant now as ever, offering a thoughtful, emotional journey into the heart of our digital lives.